April anyway. It's our very last Autism Awareness Month, homeschooling during COVID, the non-typical child probably on the spectrum of autism and maybe with some comorbid. It's not a terrible word, by the way. Comorbid means co-occurring problems. Oh my goodness. I hope this is working out. I'm having a lot of trouble with my internet today, so I'm just going to cross my fingers and go ahead as if it's working. Okay. All right. Let's start with this. I was thinking, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I put on my makeup. I changed my shirt. I fixed my hair. I did it again and I did it again because I was putting all this pressure on today. I'm like, it's the last one. It's the last one. What should I say? And it reminded me of any time I felt something was too important. You know, I've do a lot of stage work. So when you're on stage and you find out there's an important person in the audience, and now all of a sudden you don't know how to behave, or you're going to go to the IEP. You already know all these things about your child, but you're going to go to the IEP, and it's so important. It's so important. So now nothing works, right? I look ugly today. The space I'm using is stupid. One becomes very judgmental when they put too much weight on things. So I'm going to take a deep breath. And we're just going to chat. And hopefully, if you've been doing that as well, if you've been going, oh, I have to be as good as the teachers. I have to know my stuff. I have to understand what to do next. And I have no idea. Just let's do this together. Let's go. It's okay. They don't know what they're doing either. Let me say that one more time because it's true. They don't know what they're doing any more than you do. They've been trained, yes. Oh, my daughter just texted me. Let's see if it's working. Oh, it's working. But yes, it is a little slow and you look gorgeous. Oh, thank you, daughter. So on the teachers, they don't know what they're doing either. They took some training. They're doing their best. They're working with administrators who have different ideas on what should happen than maybe they themselves do. They're trying to figure out how to get, Johnny quiet and Mary well behaved and Roseanne to stop picking her nose and putting the boogers on the wall. And, you know, there's a lot going on for a teacher. So it's the same for them as it is for you. They don't know what they're doing either. I can't tell you how many times I got phone calls from teachers who were crying saying, what do I do? In fact, I tell this one story in my show, and it's really quite telling. So I'll share it with you now. So my son, he's 5 years old at this point, and I adopted him. He was 3 at the time. So I've had him for a couple of years, and his challenges are showing. And the school gives me a call, and they say, Lynette, he locked his teacher in the closet. What are we supposed to do with that? And I'm like, open the door? And it's a funny story, but it's true. When we're so busy worrying about what's right to be done, we don't think of the next logical step. So just take a deep breath and take the next logical step. I'm going to tell you one more story before I sort of bring it all together and see if anyone has any questions. So I snuck, in a way, I snuck 2 of my children into this family class. It was like a family therapy, family class for families who are trying to get a good, positive outlook on life. It wasn't advertised as for special children. However, I didn't find it easy to find those kinds of things for special children, so I left that out. I didn't bring the 2 lower functioning children, or I had more than that, but of the boys that were on the spectrum. But I did bring the 2 higher functioning ones. And so it was me and my 2 sons, and we were there. And there was this point, there were only 2 other families. And there was this point during the therapy sessions or the getting to know each other sessions and the be friends and learn how to be positive sessions, where the other family was doing some role playing, one of the other families. And they were so funny. They were like watching a sitcom. I was busting a gut laughing for the first few minutes. And then it occurred to me that there was a meanness happening and that the meanness was in the jokes. Now, I love comedians for how they bring you the news and they lighten the mood. But very often, comedy perpetuates a problem. The news is a problem, yes, but most people don't think about, I'm watching this particular comedy all the time, and my favorite character is very sarcastic and says very blunt and cruel things. They don't think about it as I might absorb that and become that myself. And yet, you might, and they did. So here they were, this family using this sort of mean comedic barbs on each other, keeping us entertained and even themselves, but hurting each other and not growing more positive, more happy. That wasn't as funny. And it's something to think about because we put our defenses down when we're watching, say, a comedy movie or a Disney movie or, these other things. When we watch an action movie, we put our defenses down and just be entertained. And yet you're being affected. You're becoming someone. I think that's a good thing to talk about today. You're at home homeschooling. How do you know what's right? How does the teacher know what's right? How do you know what influences you should pay attention to? I made a statement. I was talking with my daughter yesterday, and I said, why do we study things if nobody's going to pay attention to the results? I'm going to explain that to you because it's a frustration of mine. So, for example, I heard somebody saying, that why don't they keep their children at school where it's safe? And I was like, it's not safe at school. First of all, there's way more germs. You open up schools, you open us up to more germs in the first place. You open us up to school shootings. You open us up to bullying. You open us up to suicide. You open us up to all kinds of cyber problems. The truth is that we study this. We study the results of going to school and then say something completely untrue. Now, in the study, it'll tell you you're better off homeschooling. They'll completely say it. But when they then advertise what you should do with your child, they'll put the safe word with go to school. This makes no sense. I was looking up the stats, and this March, while everyone was home, is the first time we didn't have a school shooting. Every day we have a shooting. So here in America, at least, this is, I suppose, global. So those of you who aren't in America, you probably don't have all those shootings, but you may have the other problems. It's really important to understand that you're listening to people spin the facts. And if you let them spin the facts so they can target you and sell to you and corral you, it's going to be very hard for you to know what to do. And then if you let yourself believe all those things, you'll be in a state of confusion. And when the comedians are saying, making jokes about all these children, parents who are trying to homeschool, you're going to start saying them too. And when you do that, your children hear you and they start to get hurt. When my children were teenagers, my daughters, I remember I was doing stand-up comedy at the time. I've done a lot of things to pay the bills, trust me. So I was doing stand-up comedy at the time, and I started to make teenager jokes. And they literally took me aside and said, "You're starting to be your show." And I mean, I just had to stop that, right? I didn't want to be the person who was always complaining and looking for the funny joke on my children. That wasn't the point. I sacrificed the laughs for the love at home. And that's what I would advise you to do. Go for the facts, not the spin. When someone gives you all this stuff about conspiracies or vaccines or, hey, I'm not even saying do or don't. What I'm saying to you is try to garner facts, look at what really happens, meet some people with some actual experience, and make up your mind and be willing to change your mind if you're wrong. It's the most important part. Be willing to change your mind if you're wrong. Okay, so let me see. I wanted to make sure you understood that about the safety and give you some advice on how to know what to do. Now, before I start reading and see what all that stuff over there is, I also want to give you a couple of tips technique-wise, okay? So this spectrum is enormous. You can have somebody who is, an adult in a diaper and you don't know how to deal with that, and someone who's a really high functioning computer whiz, and they're both given the same label, which is ridiculous if you think about it. So how can I possibly give you techniques that would work for all of them? Guess what? I can. Here's why. Because what works. You just adapt it and generalize it for that person. So you decide what your goal is. You do what I talked to you about before. You do 4 compliments to 1 correction. So you're mostly rewarding, but you have a bottom line. You say what you don't want. You correct that. And then you compliment. You keep the balance in the positive. You go after the same thing for the person who's a high functioning computer whiz but doesn't want to be touched or look at anybody or talk on a subject other than computers. You do the same thing for that person as you do for the person who is just sitting going like this and maybe only wants to hear the same song over and over again. That might be my song. Well, he listens to more songs now, but it was certainly him at one point. So you do the compliment to correction ratio. You do the let me be your friend by being sort of like you. Let's get those mirror neurons firing. Let's have you feel like who you are and what you do is cool. We like you. We like you just the way you are. I sound like Mr. Rogers. We like you just the way you are. But it's our job as parents to then teach you the next thing. So this isn't about you're broken. Sure, you might be more challenged than me, but it isn't about that. It isn't about, you're a horrible person. It's about, here's where you're at. I like you just the way you are. Now let me teach you something to make your life a little easier. So 4 compliments, 1 correction. Eye contact, you reward it. When they look in your eyes, you smile bright. You say hello. You maybe get something that they like. You go, oh, I thought you were daydreaming. Oh, there you are. Sure, let me turn that song on for you. You talk computers if that's what the person likes to talk about. And while you're doing that, you ask them for a turn. Now, your child will do anything for you if they feel like you like them. Now, they will wear out. They do have a certain attention span. They do have a level of comfort in certain sensory places. Yeah, sure. They sometimes implode or explode. Yeah, sure. But they're trying to do it for you, even in those times, if they feel like you like them. And I know I hound on this, but I hound on it because it gets lost. Everyone's so busy looking for what's broken and how to fix it that nobody's connecting with what's already there. And then the people that are doing that often forget to put the challenge in. Doesn't matter whether it's the high functioning person or the low functioning person. What you do is the same. You just do it in accordance with them. Okay? Let's see. The family stories, love them. Point you're making about comedy and jokes, woohoo, good. I have autism. That's me. I'm 51. Hey, Troy. Well, to Sarah, thank you for always commenting. Troy, welcome. I don't know which part of that you related to, but I'm sure glad you related to some part of it. And if you have a question, I'll sort of stall for a minute in case you want to ask it. But I do love hearing from someone to know that you're relating to some of the content sharing. And I'm 63, in case you are wondering my age. And some of that's me too. So I get it. Let's see. Have I got anything else that I so all right, let's just look at those techniques for 1 second. I talked about the ratio of positive to negative. Well, let's not call it negative, compliments to corrections, right? Everybody needs to be sort of course corrected as they move through life. Um, I talked about being willing to admit when you're wrong. You know, you're going to have a lot of conflicting information. You're going to have a lot of influences in your life that are right at one point and not at another. As a matter of fact, that's a good thing to end on. So, very often we discount what came before when we find out it's wrong. And and often that's what's wrong. You see, it could be correct to join is a good word, to join somebody in the way that they play constantly at a certain phase of their development. But then if you keep only doing that, you're not really inviting them to change or learn. So it becomes wrong to do. Sorry about that. Um, it's not COVID, I promise. It's an allergy. So it becomes wrong to do. And it doesn't mean you were wrong to do it before. Don't discount it. Just look at it, say things have changed. It's time to move on. So I'm going to move on. It's the end of Autism Awareness Month. Thank you for joining me. I'm Dr. Lynette Louise. They call me the brain broad. That's why I'm always leaning on this brain. Bye. Thanks for being here.